the night of the marriage, he has a box. In this box, he opens the box and it's attire. It's a certain type of attire that he's expecting. The sister got scared and he was slightly frustrated. When I'm hearing this, I'm thinking immediately, okay, why is your expectation this immediately?
In order to receive understanding, you have to give understanding.
Okay.
And when the person knows that you're willing to have that husn al-dhan and like, okay, I don't fully get it, but I'm willing to understand why this bothers you. I might not even agree with you 100%, but I'm willing to understand what bothers you about this.
You may have to reach out to another person, until you get a response. And I know that puts the onus on the brother, but that strength of reaching out will be challenged. And that challenge may come in the aspect of not receiving a response from the first person or the second person. The process of reaching out is a burden, is difficult, but it is also something that you can bear as well.
What would you advise a friend that receives that phone call from the wife, from his friend's wife, that he's been domestically abusing her? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How's everyone doing? I'm Abdullah Oduro, and welcome to the Iman Cave, where we discuss issues of male excellence while being grounded in faith. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You know what? I think I want a divorce. I don't know if I can handle this. The statement has been said by some of us that are viewing, or we've heard our fathers or mothers say this. You know, in Islam, it's very important for us to understand initially that the goal of what is called the maqasid of the Sharia, or the Islamic objectives, is to establish and maintain families, with the reality that Al-Khaliq, the creator of the heavens and the earth, knows us as human beings and that we're human. We'll forget, we'll be negligent, and sometimes we may not be compatible. Meaning two people that are trying to be their best may not be compatible. We see this with the life of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions that talaq, divorce, took place. Thank you for joining. We are on our second portion of the series entitled Divorce Problem or Solution. If you tune into the first show, it was about before marriage. As you know, we are going to talk about three components or phases: before marriage, during marriage, and after marriage. The last show was about before marriage. What are some of the pitfalls and what are some preventative measures that you men can take in regards to getting married? Some things that you should consider. Now we're going to talk about during marriage. How can it be divorced during marriage? Where's the connection? Well, many people that we know, and many people, maybe you, and it's okay, because the divorce can be a solution sometimes and can be a problem, and we're going to dive deep into that. During the marriage, sometimes people may not be there mentally. They may be divorced mentally. In their mind, when they walk in their homes, they dread seeing their wives. The wife dreads seeing her husband. This even took place during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where a woman mentioned that she just is not attracted to him, and she fears that she may have a form of ungratefulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from this hadith, this situation, what took place with this female companion, may Allah be pleased with her, the Prophet ﷺ legislated what is called khul', or what is called the request to be separated from her husband, divorced from her husband, where he ordered her to give back the mahar, or the dowry, which was the garden that was given to her by him. But as was mentioned for men, what are some things that you, men that are aspiring to get married, that you should know, and men that are watching and you're probably going through this? We're here to help with two illustrious individuals. Firstly, the one to my right, mashallah, brother Faizan Majid, alhamdulillah, mashallah, longtime friend, alhamdulillah. And he is a therapist, a counselor. And I want to, the words are very important here, and I don't want to make the mistake, and feel free to correct me. He's a behavioral therapist and counselor. And you counsel from all ages, correct? Or?
Counsel all ages.
All ages. Yeah. So currently counseling in school, and mashallah, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years. And I counsel all ages, but it just naturally has become more younger folk, children, because I end up working with quite a few Islamic schools, alhamdulillah.
Okay, mashallah, tabarakallah. He will be our co-host today, and I think this is going to be a phenomenal session because we have two therapists, but particularly we have our licensed marriage and family therapist, mashallah, Brother Usman Mughni. He was there last week, alhamdulillah bil alameen, and he is going to talk about what all of us are going to talk about. I'm just going to sit back and listen and benefit and get all the food, inshallah, as you will consume this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bi'idhnillah. Brother Usman Mughni is a licensed marriage and family therapist. We are going to talk about today, during marriage, what are those things that potentially can lead to divorce? Now, when talking about this, brothers, particularly, during marriage, we hear the term red flags, right? What are those things that you saw before the marriage? And, sometimes in your offices, the woman will say, the man will say, that was a red flag. I knew I should have listened to it. I knew I should have followed it, right? Let's start with mentally, psychologically. When the man is in the course of marriage, whether it's the first month, the first year, the 10th year, I've seen as an imam, the man comes in the office and he's checked out, like mentally checked out. He's smiling, mashallah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh in the masjid. But when he sits in your office, when you get along with him, alhamdulillah, he's able to be vulnerable enough. We're going to talk about that. And he's just not there mentally. He's just there. I'm just providing. I'm not even there mentally. What do y'all have to say about that in regards to not being there mentally for the man? What are some situations that you've seen, and what's some potential advice you can give in that regard?
It's not something that happens overnight, right? Like one statistic that I share, Faizan, I'm sure you're familiar with this, is that on average, couples will go to like marriage therapy 5 to 7 years after a problem has been prominent. So if you think about a repeated pattern over and over and over again for 5 to 7 years, that's going to be very difficult to break out of. So that resentment is there, that that frustration, and you almost su'adhan at that point. But it's like for them, it's like evidence-based su'adhan, right? It's like I know they're going to, because I haven't. Trust me, brother. I know how she's going to react. Trust me, I know how he's going to react.
Okay. Right. So having those bad expectations of
right. There's even this whole idea of getting to a point where you release the person from the role of the villain. You know what I'm saying? Gotten to a point where you expect the absolute worst from them. And when we were talking about like the previous stage, while you're looking for somebody, we were talking about this idea of like being rigid, having standards, so on. Like, yes, it's great to have husna dhan, but don't save her if you don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't jump into a situation like that and so on. Once you're in it, it's different, right? Once you're in it, then that leniency, that flexibility, all of that is there. You know what I'm saying?
I see.
Right?
I see.
Now you're not as rigid, right? That's what we were kind of trying to point out initially, right? Is that the biggest preventer of divorce is marrying the person who's right for you in the first place.
The person who's right for you in the first place.
But I mean, people are listening and they're like, but it's too late now, right? So now we're going to talk about like what and I think one thing, and we come across this a lot, dude. Like it's. How do I know it's right to get divorced? Like what, and that's what people, unfortunately, because we're kind of centering this around divorce, right? Ask yourself, okay, what is my objective when I come into a counselor's office, when I come to an imam's office? Okay. Is it reconciliation, or is it some type of validation that, yes, I'm right for asking for a divorce, right? So that's the first thing. What's your intention? And then, based on that, like we can talk about, maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself, but we can talk about what are some steps, what are some like hoops you have to basically jump through before you can say that, okay, as humanly objectively as possible, I think divorce is the right decision, or I think staying together is the right decision.
Okay, so if we were to just start from how you mentioned, the whole concept in Islam of su'al-dhan and husn-al-dhan, which is having bad thoughts or good expectations about the person. If we're looking at the husband, for instance, Faizan, the husband, he says, look, it's been 5 years. We've been married for 7, but the past 5 years, she's just been vicious, man. And I'm not expecting anything good from her. I'm expecting her to always be jealous. She's a very jealous sister, right? Him walking in, like you mentioned, him walking into the office and just maybe having the intention just to get validation to do or act the way he is acting. Is that common? I mean, he's saying that that's common. Have you seen that a lot? And what would you particularly advise in that particular situation?
SubhanAllah, I think when there's an element of when someone comes into your office of they're coming in with a level of baggage of truths that they think are true, that they have believed for so long that actually need to be put on trial.
Okay.
They need to be examined. They need to be looked at a little bit more carefully and actually see if this is an actual truth that's in my marriage. And if it is, what is the evidence that I have for that? So say someone comes in, like you mentioned, they have an expectation that my wife is jealous and is always going to be jealous. That second part of the statement, always going to be jealous,
Okay.
right? Is that really the case? Or are you reading into things, or are you looking at things a little bit differently? And I think there's an element of work that needs to be done there. If that is true, and if there is evidence, then we obviously take the next steps and look at if there's a possibility for reconciliation. If not, then divorce.
Yeah, you know what's important here, man. I just want to interject on that, because let's be honest. We're not here to bash men. We're not here to bash women. We're here to tell certain truths or realities with people that this is their profession. So I'm almost about to say, take it how you want it. But you mentioned the truths need to be put on trial. I like how you mentioned that, because the man may come to the office and he didn't want to come in the first place. Especially a licensed marriage and family therapist. The woman may have brought him there, right? And alhamdulillah, he was man enough, right, to get up and go. But then if his truth is being put on trial, he has to be willing to accept that.
Yeah.
You know, it's a level of humility that's needed. Would y'all agree?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, so because when he's there, something that like you mentioned, I'm so glad you mentioned that, how it's 5 years in the making, right? How he comes there and he's expecting his truth to be validated, but all of a sudden he's challenged. And sometimes it's in front of his wife. Sometimes it's in front of his wife, because he had these thoughts about her and he's being challenged on what he knew was right? Particularly in the aspect of respect. Let's move on to respect. Numerous times I heard, she doesn't respect me. What have y'all seen in regards to respect? What I've seen in respect, firstly, she second guesses my decisions. She doesn't listen to me, right? Do you all hear that constantly from those that may be married in regards to respect? When they say the word respect, what falls under that when they expound upon that particular subject?
It depends on the individual, right? There's one thing, like when it comes to marriage talks and so on, right? I don't like generalizations.
Okay.
Right? And I get that, like, you know, we can kind of, you know, predict, like, for example, women are more emotional, men are more logical, or something like this, right? Like that pigeonholes us, right? You look at things on an individual basis, right? The Prophet ﷺ gave certain advice based on the person, their situation, and so on, right? So I don't know why that gets lost when it comes to mental health, when it comes to relationships and so on. Then we're okay just, you know, generalizing. So what does respect mean? It depends on the person. You know, one person might define respect one way, one person might define respect the other way. Also, you know, what baggage are they coming with, right? So if somebody is feeling that, like, oh, I've always been called irresponsible, or I've always been called like that, I don't work hard enough or something by my parents or by my friends or this or that, right? So if that means that any inkling, even if the sister didn't mean, you know, in the wrong way, is going to trigger him, then he's going to consider that disrespectful. So you also have to kind of take a step back and say, like, you know, look at your own baggage and so on. You know what I'm saying? Like, define it. What does that mean for you? What will make you specifically feel respected?
I was going to say, like, that specifically, like, it's so individual. Like, respect is so individual that you have to, you know, we hear a lot that you need to learn, one of the biggest things that you need to do when you're married is that you need to communicate with each other.
Okay.
Communication is huge. But I like telling clients that, yes, communication is huge, but you need to know what to communicate as well. You need to know yourself to the point where you can communicate. So if respect is something that's incredibly important, what does it mean to you? And that changes the interaction between husband and wife. If you don't know what respect means to you, how are you ever going to be able to communicate it?
Exactly.
Okay, so this is a little pushback for both of you. And I know there's going to be pushback right now. So if it's individually based, what do we say about the concept of the fitrah? So, like, for instance, men are created, men are from Venus and women are from Mars, right?
Right.
Can we say that there has to be a level of generalities when it comes to male and female fitrah biology, from them being predominantly women are more emotional, which is not a flaw.
Right, of course.
And predominantly men are, less emotional or
more stoic, more aggressive.
Yeah. Right. Aggressive, right? Which is not a flaw. It's just as long as it's used in its proper. So how are we joined between those two? Because when you mention respect as well, along with the fitrah, along with the natural inclination, we were talking about biology, for lack of better words, which is an aspect of the fitrah, cultural nuances, right? What's considered respect. I grew up And this was respect to me. I come home every day, there should be food ready. And if there's not food ready, there's a level of disrespect that I will not tolerate. So how would we reconcile between the fact that it's not cookie cutter,
Right.
but there is wiggle room or freedom for there to be individualistic considerations when dealing in this particular aspect?
Right. I mean, I think part of it is like we work on the micro and not the macro,
Yeah, exactly.
right? So like in the therapy office, like just like one-on-one, that's why I don't like those generalizations. Like in general, like yes, there are, I think, a decent, you know, if you take like a large sample size of like South Asian men, for example, who would, you know, just feel elated when their wife shows love and consideration and care to, you know, their mom and their sister and their siblings and their father, and that's, you know, respect for them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Are there others who, you know, maybe don't care? Yes. You know, like the point is like I wouldn't just jump in and assume, because I've gotten like, you know, pushback, understandably so. Like we're like, okay, well, why are you assuming? Like sometimes the guy will be like, dude, why are you assuming that I'm like, you know, I'm actually, you know, I can become quite emotional, right?
I think there are some generalities there. Like there are created differences between men and women, of
They
course.
said that untha.
But when they come into the office and when we talk to them, there's a discovery process that has to happen in the beginning where we're understanding what their level of respect is. But very generally speaking, I think there is an element of we like to come home, and for South Asian men, we like it when our wife looks at us as a leader. And I think that aspect of leader, that needs definition as well. But then that's more individualistic. But if there's a level of looking at the husband as someone who takes the lead, takes the charge, and leads the household, I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot with clients, that's something that can be in that category of being respected by their wife.
But see, I don't think that's individualistic, though. I think that's Islamic.
Of course.
And I mean, you know, even the term of qawwama, right, which seems problematic, and I think it's problematic because of the way it's implemented and because of societal norms that Islam does not accept, right? So, for instance, we in Islam believe the man is the leader, right? And we believe that in Islam, y'all can. I want to hear what y'all have to say. In Islam, that the word obedience should not be shied away from. Like the woman should be obedient to her husband, but then the husband should serve his wife as well. But when we look at the word obedience, we think in Arabic it's isti'bad. It's like worship, or it's that she has no say whatsoever, and that whatever he says, period, cannot be questioned. That's where it's a cultural nuance that has kind of overshadowed the Sharia. We see the female companions, many times they would question the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He would mention something, they would question him. Right? And then the Prophet ﷺ would answer. So when I think, and that's what I mentioned, I think we in Islam, especially, particularly in this issue of gender relations, we need to own a lot of these terms. So for instance, obedience, service, right? The man does serve his wife. I mean, you know, his protection provision is serving the wife. He should listen to her, you know, when she mentions something, because she is the mother of his children. Like that's a lofty position. Housewife is a word that has been robbed by secularism, by feminism. And I think primarily from the sexual revolution, starting from there in the birth control pill. The housewife is a lofty position in Islam. It's a lofty position. I'd like to hear what y'all have to say, because I think from that, and I think there's tawfiq. I think there's a synergy between what you mentioned what y'all mentioned with, because this therapist, when he comes in and he says she's not listening to me, oh yeah, that's because he's stoic. Yeah, I understand. That's because men are this. Being a therapist doesn't accept, it's not that simple, right? Is that what you all are kind of alluding to? That, yes, I understand those general nuances that take place with the fitra and the biology of the men, but I want to allow that to dictate how I asked him earlier, is therapize, is that a verb?
We can make it a verb if it makes you happy.
It makes me happy. So therapize. I don't want to get y'all in trouble, but
I was going to mention this idea of how it looks individualistic. You mentioned it in part one, actually, where I think you gave the example of a husband that makes less than his wife, and the wife makes a lot more money, but she's still giving that leadership role to him. So there's a financial difference there, but that leadership role is so. There's a general aspect of leadership, and then the individual aspect of how it kind of fits into here.
Is that the manifestation of individualist that you're?
Yeah,
That's kind of what I.
So I'll speak on myself, right? Like I think that, and maybe this is the fifth. I think part of qawama is a hikmah in leadership, but also a sense of altruism, right? Like I think that,
of course,
you know, a good man will be able to look at his like wife and kids having fun, you know, maybe just running around on, you know, playground or something like this, knowing that alhamdulillah, like, you know, I'm able to provide this life for them through halal means, and that's his happiness. He's not asking for anything else back but that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if you ever had those moments where you're just like,
what do you mean? What do you mean having 4 kids, man? Come on, man, you about to get me emotional.
right. But then, you know,
oh man, that's beautiful.
Part of being a real man.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah. That is beautiful, man. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Subhanallah, yeah. That's beautiful when you just see your family.
Yeah.
I remember I was with my father-in-law in Al-Medina, and mashallah, I mean, mashallah, may Allah bless him. He has a big family. I'll just leave it at that. he has a big family. So he had like at least 10 grandchildren. No, he has 10 children, and then like about 15 to 20 grandchildren. We were all in the room. They're all running around. Like the sisters were outside, but the brothers. So I looked at him. I looked at him. I said, "Kullu hada ashanak." I was like, "All of that is because of you." And you know, as men, he looked back. He was like, I was like, mashallah. I was like jealous, but it was just beautiful because you see all of them. You know, nasallahu al-afiyah wa salam. We ask Allah for health. They're all healthy. They're all screaming and running and being troublesome and you know, knocking over the tea and it's a beautiful moment. You know, it's a beautiful thing. I'm so glad you mentioned that.
I love a loud house, by the way. I love when they're trying. It's alive. And I love a loud masjid too.
Yeah,
it's alive,
you know, subhanallah. Yeah. So, okay, so we talked about during the marriage, okay, you know, mentally, you know, there may be some bad expectations, but it's very important, as you all mentioned, you know, you can't generalize as well. And then the man needs to really take a step back, particularly, and think of what is that su'al-dhan, husnul-dhan, the bad thoughts that he has, and he has to kind of unpack that, or that's where we all come in to unpack that, challenging the truth, putting the truth to trial. It's important for men to be humble, and that's a process, and it's a challenge. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He loves that. Now, during their marriage as well, people come into the office, and you know there may have been some expectations on intimacy, right? I'll give one example. Man gets married, and the night of the marriage, I think let's just start the night of the marriage, expectations on the night of the marriage. He has a box. In this box, he opens the box, and it's attire. I'll just leave it there. It's a certain type of attire that he's expecting. The sister got scared, right? And he was slightly frustrated. When I'm hearing this, I'm thinking immediately, okay, why is your expectation this immediately? I think it's very important, you know, on the first night, you'll find, because we had another episode, you know, let's be frank. I mean, a lot of our young men, they're watching pornography. And that pornography sets a certain expectation on the female.
Right.
And he may not even realize, because he's so engulfed in that, and marriage for him was like, all right, now it's on.
Yeah.
Right? And she's looking at him like he's an animal. And that's a total, I don't want to use turn off, but it's just, it's concerning, right? What have y'all seen in regards to that? I mean, like during the marriage or the first night, what have y'all seen or heard or, you know, dealt with in this regard?
Right. So, I mean, a few things, right? Like you mentioned pornography, right? So pornography throws away the entire idea of foreplay, right? And
can you explain what that is?
Yeah. Foreplay, you know, leading up to just penetration, right? When people watch pornography, they skip scenes and they skip to like that's not how intimacy works. There's a warm-up period. There's like, you know, biologically, there's a difference in how quickly a man gets aroused versus how quickly a woman gets aroused, right? And you know that, you know, you're talking about communication. That's something that has to be communicated, and you know, we shouldn't be shy. Like first to talk about it, like just in general, right? There has to be a great like sex education curriculum. One of my friends, I don't know, Habib Akindi, and he talks quite a bit about that. He brings it back to different examples like works of Ibn Hazm, rahimahullah, and so on, and just
Suyuti, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. So. communicating and learning that process, right? I've seen. So I don't have any statistics compared to like previous, but I have seen cases of vaginismus, like where you're familiar with this, right? Like where the female will have pain during penetration, and there's no other medical reason for it, and so there's physical therapy and so on that helps with that, right? But then like the guy knowing that this does exist, right? And there's no way for the girl to know that beforehand,
right?
For the virgin, right? So being open to having these type of conversations and so on, right? And like. Like even as we're talking about this right now, like I'm like, oh, this is an Islamic show. I'm saying the word penetration. Why is that weird for me to say? You get what I'm saying? Like, and that's a problem.
That's the problem.
Right.
That is the problem. And Islam does call for you to be, for lack of better words, mature.
Yeah.
Especially for men, because if they're going to be the leaders, they have to be mature and know how to deal with these situations. Like you mentioned, if it may have been painful, he may think he's doing a great thing because of
pornography.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, with the foreplay. And make no mistake, I mean, this was in the time of the Prophet ﷺ in different ways, The Prophet, there was kissing there. The Prophet ﷺ, even with Aisha radiallahu anha, she would pass the cup and he would turn the cup to where he drank and drank from there. That's a form of romance. I mean, romance is something that is very important. Right. You see this many sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ for young men to understand. And like you saying, the skipping the foreplay, that's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Right. And as a man, there's a pride that you have in that you're able to please your spouse in that manner. Right? Not just relieve yourself, but please your spouse. Like you feel better. You should feel better.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that's completely antithetical to like what pornography teaches. So,
exactly. SubhanAllah.
From what I've seen, like on the marriage night, there's an expectation of bliss from the guy and an expectation of fear from the woman. Have you found that?
So I mean, that's what leads sometimes to vaginismus, right? Like, it's true. Sometimes, yes, that is there.
That's tense.
Like, and just the mismatch between the two,
right?
That leads to a lot of problems that could come.
Right. No, absolutely. So what will help foster a sense of safety?
Right.
And and that's like okay, we'll get very explicit here since we when you're communicating, you can talk during sex, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, how does this feel? How does this not feel? It's not going to be perfect the first night. Guys who are virgins, girls who are virgins, it's not going to be. It's supposed to get better over time, but you learn about each other. You learn about each other's bodies. Together, right? Do you like this? Do you not like this? Ask questions and then go through it.
There's a growth process.
There's a growth process, exactly. So that expectation that's going to be fireworks the first night.
Let me ask this question: does there have to be sex the first night?
I've seen couples delay consummation, right? So there's there's foreplay, there's all of this, but then they delay penetration.
She says, "I'm just not ready." She says, "I'm just not ready." Right? Yeah.
Right.
I've seen that situation as well because I remember one brother told me, said, "Yo, we just talked the whole night till Fajr." Yeah. And the brothers are like, "What?" Yeah. I'm like, "What's wrong with that?"
If he's okay with it, right?
No. I mean, he was mentioning it like he was mentioning like. It was beautiful, actually. I just remember what he said. He said, we talked the whole night. Some brothers were like, what? Kaif. He was like, I didn't even think about, like our conversation was so good. We were laughing and then the Adhan of Fajr went off.
SubhanAllah.
And it was a beautiful moment. And then she felt safe. She told me later she felt safe after that to be attracted.
I bet you future intimacy was fireworks for them because they made that emotional connection, because they talked, they communicated. Yeah.
Allah Akbar.
I think that's it. Like that element of making her feel safe.
Right.
And then that's all foreplay as well. The idea of building that emotional connection. That's all there. Like it doesn't have to be in specific kisses or things like that. It could just be talking all night.
Right. Yeah. So foreplay is not just physical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just physical. Yeah. Exactly. All those the senses. This you mentioned earlier, like what is attraction again, the smells, for men, it's like kind of what they see, these things that can bring form of arousal. The man, if he really wants to take that role of qawama and leadership, he has to be the one that, the foreplay for him, it may be much quicker for him where he gets aroused and wants to be with her, but for her, it takes time. And that is not a flaw in her. That is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created her. That he has to be, have a level of charisma.
Yeah.
Have a level of charisma when talking to her. Okay, so great first night, things are working out. She's complaining that I'm not the guy that I used to be, right? I walk around the house with, they call it the bunyan. There's a group called bunyan. And they gave me the third grade at my masjid. I call it كأنهم بنيان مرصوص. It's in the Quran, Surah Saf. Like they're a strong foundation, but y'all laughed, y'all automatically knew.
We already knew because my son asked that same question. He's like, and I literally on that verse, right?
Oh, really?
He's like, why they say banyan?
Can you share with the audience what bunyan is?
Like
It's like a wife beater.
Don't say that
don't
word.
say that word. I was hoping you wouldn't say that, bro. No, that's horrible. No, edit that out, man.
Sorry.
No, undershirt, man.
How else can we describe it?
A tank top
It's a
undershirt.
tank top undershirt. Tank top undershirt. Yeah.
Okay, that works.
No, but like banyan it can be half sleeve as well. It doesn't have to be tank top.
Oh, really?
It's basically undershirt.
It's just an undershirt.
It's undershirt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It's but mostly it is the tank top version.
So the guy walks around in his bunyan. Bunyan?
Banyan.
Banyan with mud. Okay.
Yeah,
He walks around
there's a mud.
He walks around with his bunyan.
Six
right?
harakah.
She's not attracted to him, and she doesn't tell him why. You know what? She may not even know why she's not attracted to him. Have y'all run into cases to where, the woman says, I'm not attracted to him anymore, and through therapy, you find out it's because of the way he takes care of himself. Is that common? Is that something that you have seen?
I think we spoke about this earlier, like the idea of attraction. Attraction is something, there's an element of it that is static, meaning I am attracted to a person or I'm not.
Okay.
But there's an element of it that's also dynamic, that needs to be worked on.
Okay.
There's a verb aspect to it. You need to put in the work, you need to put in the effort. And even if they're not able to articulate it, I think both sides, like man and woman, they need to understand that once you're married, the work's not done. You got to start. There's a whole different level of work that starts to maintain and grow that attraction. Because attraction can grow after marriage.
Okay. Let's stop. Okay. Attraction can grow. It's not static.
There's an element of it that is not
There's
static.
an element of it.
Dynamic.
It reminds me of the time I was in the gym and I saw a brother. He's like, "Yeah, I'm about to get married." I said, "So you in the gym because you about to get married?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, it doesn't stop there, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because when you get married, she's gonna make a lot of food for you. She likes to make food, and it's gonna, that beer belly is gonna come. That belly, not beer belly, astaghfirullah, that basbousa belly or the bakhlava belly is going to protrude, or it may come out in other places that may cause you to buy bigger sizes of pants or maybe shirts, and she may not like that, man. So, during the marriage, you mentioned the attraction. So the man has to work on himself, I guess, physically. Does that lessen the attraction if he's not keeping himself upkept? I mean, even outside of the belly.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
It's just the way you dress, clean. It works both ways, right?
All right.
Our parents' generation, I feel like you've seen uncles, right? You're not gonna see most uncles in sweatpants and a t-shirt,
Yeah.
right? They do it right,
How?
So button down,
Explain.
like nice
Yep.
shirt. You know what I'm talking about? Even like the older uncles, mashallah, it's always a dress shirt, pants. There's just something dignified. They'll go to Walmart and wear that.
Okay.
You're not gonna see them in like flip flops and this and that. It's always like so. There's you know what I'm saying, right?
I was going to say, like, my dad, mashallah,
I was thinking about my dad too. Yeah.
every time he goes out, like, he could be going out to CVS, which is down the street, to get something for my mom.
Mashallah.
He'll put on a dress shirt, dress pants, look all nice, cologne, everything, and then go out and then be back in 5 minutes and then he's done.
What does that signify, though? What does it signify?
Takes care of
What are y'all
himself.
telling us?
He takes care. He has a level of dignity in him that pushes him to look a certain way, behave a certain way, especially in front of his wife, my mom.
Right.
So he wants her to see that, okay, even if I'm going out just to get you something small for 5 minutes, I'm doing it with ihsan in the best possible way. So I've seen that, and I love that.
Yeah,
mashallah.
right.
It's something that, like, our generation, younger generation, can take from and learn from that and implement that as well, inshallah.
Right.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, mashallah. So being upkept even, in the house, subhanAllah, in the Allah Jami yuhibbul jamal, right? Allah is, He loves beauty, mashallah, tabarakallah. So during the marriage, keeping up, staying upkept with yourself, making sure you're looking clean, even when you're in the house, even around your wife, because the attraction is not static. It can grow even within the marriage, right? What about with the character of the husband? What are some things that will make him more attractive or that can lessen the attraction? And there's one word I want to use here, resentment. What are some of the things that can cause the wife to resent him during the marriage that he wasn't doing from before? Like when they first got married, it was great. But now that he's married, he's been lackadaisical. We talked about cleanliness. We talked about, is he fit? But what about with his character? What are some things that you have seen, and what would you advise in this regard?
Rigidity.
Rigidity.
Right,
Okay,
right.
being rough. With
Being rough, inflexible, right? Lack of willingness to understand. You've seen this, like, not just in marriage therapy, but like, with kids, with teenagers, with your students, right? We all desire to be understood. You don't have to agree with me, just understand me. That's across the board, right? Very basic principle in relationships in general. In order to be understood, in order to receive understanding, in order to receive understanding, you have to give understanding. Okay. And when the person knows that you're willing to have that husn al-dhan and like, okay, I don't fully get it, but I'm willing to understand why this bothers you. I might not even agree with you 100%, but I'm willing to understand what bothers you about this, right? And the more you see that flexibility in me, the more you're willing to give it back.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Okay.
And it goes along with like healthy communication. So this is one thing that I teach a lot in premarital counseling, but it comes up quite a bit in marriage counseling. People fall into two general categories when it comes to dealing with upset feelings, right? Okay. You're either a problem-solving first person or an understanding first person. So let me define that real quick. Okay. So a problem-solving first person, the way their nervous system is wired is when they are frustrated, when they, like, you lose your job, you get into a fight with a family member, you feel a certain way. What calms me down is solutions, right? I don't really need a pat in the back, but I need to know, okay, what are the next steps? How do we, get out of this? Like, do I have to go on LinkedIn? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? Right? What are we going to do differently moving forward? Understanding first people, they're also very rational, reasonable, so on, are willing to be that way, but they first need to be understood.
They need to be heard.
Right, to be heard. I'll give you a very personal example. So I was a single dad for a number of years, right? And so I remember like a Desi kid, we always struggle with like food, and like for some reason, like, our kids are generally like smaller, right? Yeah. And so like, my son's giving me all this trouble about eating, and I'm like going around like trying to like, God, he's underweight, so on. And so I asked my best friend, I was like, man, what do you do that I'm not doing? And so on. I'm just like venting, and because I'm very much an understanding first person. All he said to me was, Usman, your situation is tough. I started tearing up. Where's the solution in that? No solution in that. How many times do our spouses just need to hear that? Like, man, that was rough. Like, okay, my mom spoke to you that way? Damn, man, that shouldn't have happened, I'm really sorry that happened. I'm not going to sit there and explain, no, but she meant this and she meant that, and you're just a bad person for misunderstanding it, right? I'm not going to lose anything by just saying, like, I'm sorry that happened. That, like, that meant that I felt like a mountain lifted off my shoulders. The next day I looked up a dietitian. That I felt so much more in control. In control? Yeah. Because of that empathy? Exactly. Wow. Exactly. SubhanAllah. Yeah. Amazing. That's something lacking a lot. And I mean, now I'm generalizing, right? But that is lacking in brothers sometimes, where they say like, well, all she wants to do is complain and so on, right? Okay. Like, okay. Maybe she's looking for that understanding, and once she gets it, like, and it's not expensive to give, right? Right. Things seem to resolve themselves relatively quickly. So during marriage, wife comes home, she's complaining, and I'm not using this word complaining to shun sisters, but she's venting, right, about something or someone or something. Even certain scholars mention that it's not truly considered ghiba, backbiting, if you are venting to someone that can help. So when the wife comes home and talks about what happened at work with a couple of sisters, you're saying in this particular situation, if he's an understanding first person, or to be an understanding first person, is just to sit and to listen and to maybe say, I understand? To try and understand, right? To try and, I don't have to fully agree with you, but I'm acknowledging your validity. Like, you're not crazy. There are other normal, sane, rational human beings who would be just as upset as you. I might not be one of them, but there are other people who are there. So you're not crazy for the way you're feeling. Right. So things to say, because some guys won't know what to say. They probably try to work like, I want to say this, but I know she doesn't want a solution. Right. So things that they should say is like, I get it, I understand. Oh, wow. Well, yeah, maybe not I get it, I understand, because you already know where that's going, right? Where's it going? I was gonna say, like, tag.
What does he say? You know, because a lot of guys, they want to solve the problem, right? And, you know, sometimes it's happened like, I don't want you to solve my problem. Just want you to listen. I'm just going to be quiet. Didn't you come for some advice? I'm your husband. I'm supposed to solve the problem. So I'm the leader.
Listening, like they're thinking, man, marriage is hard. I don't want to do this anymore. It does take effort. It does take effort. But like, man, once you got it down, man, there's nothing more beautiful in the world than that.
So it takes effort to be quiet. Right?
It takes an effort to like hold down your ego, but
hold down your ego.
You're about to say something.
The understanding person first. Like, I can see it as they're the one who's in the situation, in the problem, in the difficulty, and they're venting, or they need some company in the dark place that they're in. That's what it is. They want some company in that area that they're in, that difficulty, and they want someone to understand that. Okay, I'm in this area, I'm in this place, and just understand that I'm not alone in this. And if someone just comes in and says exactly that, like, I get it, this is tough, you have the company in that place. And you feel like you're not alone. And I think understanding, as a vast generalization, generally it's women that are more understanding first, very generally speaking. And if a husband can come in and just try to put himself to where she is and understand how she is feeling and verbalize that back, a lot of times that's enough. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. It's and people who pride themselves on logic, right? If that is the thing that's going to get the results fastest, then do that. Yeah. You know, that's the more logical.
So you can still be as manly. So I don't really say that, but yeah.
No, seriously. It's like if you're a logical person, then learn to speak her language. That's the more logical thing, instead of just pushing back and trying to bend that rib, right? Like,
beautiful. I was going to say, hold on. I have to mention the hadith, the Prophet. It's a beautiful hadith that you mentioned. The Prophet he said, "In al-mar'a khuliqat min dhil'i Adam," that the woman was created from the rib of Adam. And then he said something so beautiful. He said, if you were to try to straighten it out, you would break it. You would break her. So don't try to straighten her out and change who she is, because you would verily break her. Just like you tried to straighten out a rib, it's impossible. You can't do that. So with the fitrah and the way that she is, don't try to make her solve the problems your way, as you mentioned. I think, is that a process to learn? Because the other first person, is there a role? Does that have validity in a relationship as well? You said there's the understanding first person and the
problem solving first person. Right. So this is based on a theory that actually one of my professors back in grad school came up with. It's called pragmatic experiential therapy for couples. I like it because it's one of those. It's like cognitive behavioral therapy. It's easy to teach. It's easy to learn. It's very evidence-based, so it's backed by like findings in neuroscience and so on, right? But the idea is that the overwhelming majority of arguments, and I'm not talking about major things like infidelity and abuse and all of this, but the overwhelming majority of arguments are because of an incongruence between what he calls core differences, right? I like to be shown affection one way, she likes to be shown affection another way. I like to let out my frustrations one way, she likes to be and so when these two things collide, that's when you have arguments. An extreme extrovert and extreme introvert. Like, the differences exacerbate themselves. So it's like, is it better to be understanding first or problem solving first? Right. No, both are. It's as arbitrary as chocolate versus vanilla ice cream, right? They're both good.
So it's best to observe your spouse throughout the relationship and seeing.
I think so. It's a tool actually I do a lot in premarital counseling. I actually have couples like go through this and kind of understand that. And we're like, oh wow, I never really categorize myself in that way. But you know what, subhanAllah, like I do lean more towards this and that. And so now you know how the other person is. You've asked some very meaningful questions, right? And you don't have to only do it in premarital counseling. Like even while you're married, even if you've been married 20 years, right? I think somebody could still learn this about their spouse. It's called core differences.
Okay.
You learn about your spouse in that way. Are they future oriented versus like in the moment and so on, and then their actions make a little bit more sense.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your take on the 5 love languages?
Okay, I did a workshop with Sheikh Yasser on this.
5 love languages is a book. It's a well-known book translated in many languages. So I think it has some kind of relevance to what he's talking about now.
Yeah, sure. Dr. Gary Chapman, right? I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's like a hardcore Baptist or something, but like he marketed that a lot. A lot. I think it's a very simplified concept that he did a great job marketing. It's not limited to 5 love languages. That's one thing, because sometimes people will look at that, and there's research on this, like People will look at the 5 love languages and say like, oh, but I actually like to be loved in this way and this way. Going back to the idea of like, especially South Asian guys, right? I like to be loved by, I love my family. And what is a love language to me is my wife showing respect to my family. That's not one of the 5 love languages, but it's important to me, right? So research has found there's several other love languages out there, right?
Okay.
So that's one thing. It's a good start, right? It's the idea of just, I think it falls back into communication. It's like really getting to know what makes your partner smile, what brings them comfort, and them doing the same for you.
So you've been asking the question, what makes you this? What makes you that? Did you like this? Did you like that? In times of ease and not in times of hardship. Okay.
And it can change, by the way. Sometimes guys get frustrated. They're like, no, but she said like she likes gifts, and now she doesn't like. Okay, it's fine. People grow. People change.
When looking at, you talk about observing the family, asking questions, knowing yourself and understanding your flaws. And again, it really takes a guy to be humble, because him being vulnerable by acknowledging that he doesn't know something, just like you said, the ego, that can play a huge role, because sometimes if she sees that I don't know this, it may not be attractive, or I may not be looked at as the man of the house, or whatever the case may be. Seeing men come to your office, okay, and they had a lot of stress built up, maybe have been suicidal, okay, and you were the first person that they talked to, and they had to gather up a lot of, I'll use the word humility, to come to you. It took a number of years, right, for them to do that. Point that I'm really getting to is, I'll start with this story. I received a text from a brother, and this is not a brother, it's brothers. And when I read this text, it was a sign of him reaching out. And me reading the text in the way that he wrote it was like, wow, that means this brother reached out. This brother reached out. So I called one of the previous brothers. I was like, man, he said, yeah, man, I was really going through it. So I want to talk to you two brothers about particularly 2 aspects of reaching out with men, okay? The first one is the brother that found it within himself to send a text, and it was vague. Like, "Assalamu alaikum, brother, what are you doing? How's everything going? Just haven't talked to you in a while. Just over here by myself." Send. It's a message of like, I need some companionship. I really want to talk. I'm going through hell right now. I just got a divorce. I'm on the verge of getting a divorce, right? We're going to get to the second brother, but the first brother is a brother that reaches out. What would you say to this brother that has reached out and did not get a response? Okay? The brother that reaches out and did not get a response, what would you tell them? Because when he doesn't get that response, shaitan can play with him like, look, I tried, khalas, just go back and just deal with it. And some of them, they'll go to drinking, go to drugs. Not all of them. They'll go to someone or something to fill that pain and that void, right? What would you tell that brother?
SubhanAllah, I think there's an element of strength that is taken in order to be able to reach out. But strength shows shows actually how strong it is when it's challenged. And if you reach out to someone and they don't respond back, it's a challenge to that strength that it took to reach out, that it took to actually put yourself out there and be vulnerable. So because someone didn't respond, that doesn't mean that you just falter and break down and that's it. You don't go back and reach out again. I think you have to find someone else. And I know that's tough. And I know, and first off, I think like there's an element of, mashallah, may Allah reward the brother for reaching out, because it's not easy to do that.
Exactly.
It's not easy to do that. But it's gonna you may have to reach out to another person until you get a response. And I know that puts the onus on the brother, but that strength of reaching out will be challenged. And that challenge may come in the aspect of not receiving a response from the first person or the second person. But I also think there's an element of like Allah says, that there's no burden that Allah doesn't burden a soul with more than it can bear. So the process of reaching out is a burden, is difficult, but it is also something that you can bear as well.
Right.
Man, now you're gonna get me emotional because it's been a tough week. SubhanAllah, like we need to do a better job as men, reaching out to each other, loving each other, checking up on each other. You know, like two people very close to me are going through a difficult time right now, and I feel bad that like why didn't I check up enough? Like what? And we're subtle. We're subtle in the signs that we're going through pain, right? We need to step up as brothers, right? My wife told me this. She's like, honestly, I feel like men don't know men. Like, yeah, I'll know how much you bench before I know your pain points and what you're going through and that difficulty. How much you bench? I'm just.
Or the reason why I bench, right?
The reason why you bench, yeah. To let that frustration out. When I got my divorce, Sheikh Yasser told me two things, right? And may Allah bless him, right?
Ameen.
He said, stay with the community. Keep, no matter what, right? Stay with the community and hit the gym. Essentially, do you even lift? I was like, yes. We'll talk about this maybe in the divorce episode, but there were times you're talking about strength and pushing through. Between reps, man, I was tearing up.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like hiding my tears.
Oh yeah.
And then I'd go on to the next rep. I had to push through that.
Allah.
Right?
I love it.
Some of my best friends don't know this. I'm a therapist. I'm encouraging, you know, my wife knows this, right? Other family members might know this. My brother knows this. My best friends don't know. Why is that? Why don't we share with each other, man? We're struggling. We're in pain.
Yeah.
And you know, you deprive. Yes, there's a strength in reaching out, but you're also, subhanAllah, like when you don't, you're also depriving the other person of ajr.
Allahu Akbar.
Right?
SubhanAllah. Yeah.
Reaching out doesn't necessarily mean checking up on them and talking to them specifically about whatever it is that they're going through.
Yeah.
It could be just like this. You get together, you have some laughs, you talk, enjoy some food, and you'll be surprised at how many times like guys just getting together for something as simple as playing games, some kind of game, competitive nature, even just lifting together. Yeah. And then it comes out.
Yeah, man.
And then the pain points start coming out. Yeah. But it's just creating that opportunity for that to come out, whether it's eating together, whether it's working out together, gaming together in terms of competitive games or something like that, or even just sitting together and talking like this. Yeah. It allows for that opportunity for those pain points to come out.
If I text either of you guys ever that, hey, if you're free, let's toss a football around, that means it's up here and I need to let it. I keep a football in the car.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
And we don't even have to talk. I just need to launch that thing. I need to throw a football back and forth for a bit. And
Yeah, and that's what I was going to get to the next. Y'all kind of touched on it already, but the person that receives the text, like just you mentioned, let's just get, I don't want to ask what kind of texts are there, but what could be, and you may not have an answer for this, you know, what could be a sign from the receiver that he can see, okay, this brother's kind of reaching out.
The fact that a text came is enough.
Yeah. Like how you, okay.
Yeah. The fact that a text came is enough. Especially if it's brothers that you haven't heard from in a while.
Wow, that's what I was
and they reach out to you. It doesn't matter what's being said. The fact that they sent you a text message is enough. And that's on you to maybe explore a little bit more. Pick up the phone and call them.
How's
and see
going?
how they're exactly. And that's, I think, just the behavior. The behavior has shifted. And that's one thing that we look for in the office. If behavior is shifting, and if a brother that hasn't texted you in a while is reaching out to you, that's enough of a sign to pick up the phone and check on.
There was a situation where a client had reached out to their therapist, and it was just a very vague email at like an odd time. The therapist just subhanAllah happened to be, I heard the story personally, happened to just be looking at their email, and they were able to just read, okay, something is off. Immediately called the client. Client was very just like kind of incoherent. Called 911. Police were able, they had to like break through the door. She had overdosed. Had he not checked that email,
Qaddarallahu ma sha'a fa'al. Subhanallah.
But like you said, just a text, you know. And it doesn't have to be as deep as suicide, but it's just the idea of, and we don't even, honestly, dude, we don't have to wait for things to build up, right? Sheikh Yasser was talking about this, and like we need to revive this idea, the sunnah of basically, I'm driving past your house and I'm like, yo, let's just let's chop it up a little bit. Let's have some tea, something. Make it super simple.
Yep.
Right. I'm more and more interested now in the idea of community and the importance of community and suhbah, especially brotherhood, as a preventative factor in mental health issues. And I'm seeing it more and more. And I know this is your thing, dude.
Yeah, and it's growing. The whole concept of community, even on the online sector of like cohorts and learning, it's starting to become a thing as well. Just because we're insan, that we're social creatures, and subhanallah, in an individualistic society that's pushing more towards, that social touch, being in together.
Right.
In person, offline is crucial.
And don't you think that strength, that brotherhood, that community where we have those outlets leads to healthier marriages?
Oh, no doubt about it. Brother, the gym is, physical exertion. Doesn't have to be the gym inside of walls. Outside, getting a slam ball. Like I have this circuit training I do with brothers. It's a bucket and a slam ball. You get a bucket if you can't squat because you're used to being on the computer. At least get down to the bucket, come right back up, get the ball and slam it. Like that'll release a lot of stress, inshallah ta'ala. So to the last type of brother, you mentioned it earlier.
But by the way, I want to say, because I also just caught myself, I mentioned just throwing a football is enough. That's a beginning. Talk about it too, but that's a entry point. Because if you're gonna be like, dude, what are you teaching people? You're just like, throw footballs and then so we don't talk about our problems. No, open up. Like we need to do better with that. We need to be comfortable with those tough conversations. I strive to have friends who will call me out when I'm in the wrong.
And that's the other thing too. Subhanallah, be willing to call your friends out. That's what a friend is. Subhanallah.
Yeah, brothers. If your friend is like abusive towards their family, be that good friend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to touch on that, Sheikh. Sister reaches out to you, the wife of your best friend or friend, and then she says this is going on. What do you advise a friend that gets that call? Like, bro, are you really doing this? What? And because this is during the marriage, and the man he's fallen short. It happens. He's stressed out. He's going through things. Family member may have passed away. There's been a level of resentment. And he's releasing his stress out in that way, physically abusing his wife, which is, totally haram in Islam.
Right, and we're not condoning it.
We're not condoning it. No, that's haram.
You're responsible for your hands.
You're responsible. Oh, of course. No, that's not allowed in any shape, form, or fashion or incident at all. What would you advise a friend that receives that phone call from the wife, from his friend's wife, that he's been domestically abusing her?
That's tough.
And this is a message to the brothers that are currently doing it. There's a level of sympathy for your problem that led you to do it, but doing it is impermissible. It's not allowed in Islam. And she is someone that is, as the Prophet said, إني أحرج على الضعيفين أشد على الضعيفين أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Verily, I am very diligent over the protection of the two weak ones, the orphan and the woman, right? And their weakness is a beautiful thing. It is not a flaw. It is a weakness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created them with, being that they may be, generally speaking, weaker than that of the male in regards to physical aggression that talked about. So when the woman calls and she's reaching out, and a lot of times they feel that they're in jail, because there was one time, subhanAllah, the brother threatened her that if you say anything, right, it's going to be worse. And mind you, this is her first husband. He took her. That's what I told brothers all the time. Like, this is the Prophet ﷺ, forget me. The Prophet ﷺ, when he talked about zina, he said, would you like that to happen to your mother? Would you like that to happen to your sister? Would you like that to happen to you? And he went down the line. Mother, aunt, sister in the hadith. So that is someone's daughter you are taking away from their house. And then for you to verbally abuse her, and then physically abuse her, is it fair for me to say, and I'm using the epitome of words here, to risk your friendship by advising that brother and telling him, look, bro, you need to stop. Like, what would you all say in this regard? What's the method? What's the process he should take when he receives that call?
I need a hujjah in front of Allah that I spoke up and, spoke up for justice and truth, right? That's being a good friend, right? it's on the other person whether they listen or not. But I have to speak up, right? And I understand you have to use hikmah and so on, but like honestly, in that type of situation, we're not vocal enough as brothers. We're not. There's a case where like a very educated lady got her jaw dislocated because the guy grabbed her hard and was trying to make her understand something and she wasn't paying attention. Dislocated her jaw. Right? We need to be tough on this. We need to like speak up as men.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not a man who can't control his temper in that manner.
Right. And that's why you need caves.
Yes.
This is why you need caves. For some people, it's the barbershop. For some people, it's the gym. For some people, it's just the living room or the garage. I forgot which. I was reading an article, and they were talking about how I think it was the book Men on Strike, talking about why men do not get married. There were some valid points in there. There was one chapter where they were talking about the man cave and how the man cave is a sign of emasculating him because he can't have any habitat in the house, so he has to go to the basement or the garage. I beg to differ with that. I mean, the man wants that. He wants that place. Right. He just wants a place of isolation where he can just hang out, put his feet out, and drink some water. Not beer. Drink some water.
I like your garage, much. That's a nice setup.
But yeah, it's a place where you can hang out, talk junk, laugh, make fun of each other, what they call roasting each other now, or copying, or whatever the case may be. The companions used to do that, radiallahu anhum. In the midst of all of that, just that laughter. There's been numerous times where I've been in situations like that, and you're laughing, but then when you're walking to your car about to leave, the brother comes to you.
Yep.
Because I'm like the imam, so they're like, Shay, I just want to talk to you about something. We were together for 3 hours. 3 hours.
Yeah.
And he found it within himself from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his strength and humility that he was able to come to me and say, you know what? What's going on? Just the wife, man. One time I asked the brother, subhanAllah, how's everything going? And he just, boom, just started. I'm getting a divorce, man. I don't know what's going on. I'm just getting a divorce. And then boom, I said, let's go over here. So. Because
probably nobody asked him that. Because we're talking about this idea of altruism and, qawama and so on. But that also means that, for a lot of us that we put ourselves last. We take care of ours. We take care of our family. We work hard. And we have pride in that.
Yeah.
But then there's that buildup, right? And for you, when's the last time you asked one of your friends how you holding up, man? How are you doing?
Yeah, subhanAllah.
Not just how's your job, but how are you doing?
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. That's so important. Just to, as bro, I know he has on his calendar. It's the ukhuwa calls.
Oh man.
On his calendar.
Subhanallah.
Ukhuwa calls. And I love how you mentioned that. We don't have enough time, but I think it's really good for the sisters and the wives to hear as well. The men are complaining when they come last in the house, right? Just like you said, he finds pride in doing that. But we're human as well. Yeah. And sometimes the wife may ask, but there's nothing like the brother coming and asking, how's everything going? Everything's going. No. How's everything going, man? Boom. It's like boom, so I'm so glad you mentioned that. Brothers, sisters, may Allah bless you all for tuning in. This is a great session, as all of them are great, alhamdulillah. What are some of the things that the man should be aware of during marriage? Some signs that could lead to, it's something that they should be aware of. It could be red flags or red lines. But most importantly, I think from what we just talked about in conclusion, establish your Iman cave, right? Have a place where you can sit and talk 5 minutes, 50 minutes. You can just talk over food, over a dumbbell, barbell, out just in the park walking. Where you can just get with men that have the same mindset, or your friends, or an imam, or someone that you can talk to, because it sounds very simple, like it has no effect. But as you can see here with 2 therapists, mashallah, tabarakallah, that there's a huge effect in that companionship. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless both of you for tuning in, for coming here and enlightening me and enlightening everyone else, mashallah, in this beautiful, beautiful segment that we have of talking about divorce, problem, or solution. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you viewers. And please, we're reading the comments. May Allah bless you all for your comments, for your insight. And if you have any suggestions, we're not perfect, and we didn't mention everything. We weren't planning to mention everything, but just some of the milestones that take place. And we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept it from us and to accept it from you for watching. Barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.